We'll only be gone 4 days, my daughter-in-law Jessica said, not even looking up from her phone as she scrolled through what looked like hotel bookings. She was perched on my kitchen counter like she owned the place, her manicured nails clicking against the screen. I stood there holding my coffee mug, steam rising between us in my Phoenix kitchen, the morning sun already blazing through the blinds even though it was barely 8 a.m. March in Arizona means the snowbirds are still here, but Jessica and my son Marcus had their sights set on somewhere even warmer. Sophia needs to be at dance class Tuesday and Thursday, Jessica continued, finally glancing up but not really seeing me. The boys have soccer practice Wednesday, and don't forget Jaden's inhaler before bed. Oh, and we're out of groceries, so you'll need to hit the store. Marcus sat at my kitchen table, thumbs flying across his phone screen. He didn't correct her. He didn't even acknowledge that she was basically handing me a job description for the week ahead. When did asking for help become assigning tasks? We found this amazing last-minute deal to Cabo, Jessica said with that bright smile she uses when she wants something. Just the two of us. We haven't had alone time in forever. I set my mug down on the counter, the ceramic making a sharp click against the granite. The sound seemed to echo in the sudden quiet. That's wonderful, I said, my voice steady. I'll be in Sedona that week, so you'll need to make other arrangements. Jessica's phone nearly slipped from her hands. Marcus finally looked up, his expression confused like I'd just spoken in a foreign language. Wait, what? Jessica's voice pitched higher. You didn't mention any trip. I'm mentioning it now. I smiled, but it wasn't the accommodating smile I'd trained myself to wear for years. This was different. This was the smile of someone who'd finally remembered she had choices. The silence stretched between us like a rubber band about to snap. Jessica blinked rapidly, waiting for me to laugh it off, to say I was kidding, to fold like I always did. But I wasn't folding. Not this time. When Sophia was born 7 years ago, I was 60 and still felt young. I had energy, time, and a heart bursting with love for my first grandchild. I set up the nursery in my spare room with a beautiful crib, soft yellow walls, and a rocking chair by the window where I could watch the desert sunrise while feeding her bottles. Those early days were pure magic. Friday nights meant Sophia sleeping over, and I'd make pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse while she giggled in her high chair. We'd read Goodnight Moon 3 times in a row, and I never rushed it. When she fell asleep on my chest during afternoon naps, I'd sit perfectly still and listen to her tiny breaths, thinking, this is what being a grandmother should feel like. Marcus would pick her up on Sunday evenings, always grateful, always appreciative. Thanks, Mom. I don't know what we'd do without you. Jessica would hug me and say, you're such a blessing, Dorothy. I felt needed. I felt valued. I felt like I was giving my granddaughter something precious, time with a grandmother who adored her. Then life got complicated, the way it always does. Marcus got promoted to a job that required more travel. Jessica went back to work part-time, then full-time. The boys came along, first Diego, then little Jaden. Suddenly, what started as weekend sleepovers stretched into school weeks. Could you watch all 3 while we handle some business in Tucson? Became, we'll drop them off Friday night. Became, can you keep them until Tuesday? The requests multiplied like desert weeds after rain. Always with good reasons. Always with that same phrase, just this once, Mom. But it was never just once. The shift happened so gradually I barely noticed it at first. The, would you mind, questions became statements. We'll drop the kids off at 6, no question mark, no checking my calendar, no asking if I had plans. The costs crept up too. A gallon of milk here, a box of cereal there. Then it was 3 different kinds of juice because the kids were picky. Special snacks because Jaden has allergies. Sophia needed new dance shoes. Diego wanted the name brand soccer cleats. I kept receipts in an envelope in my kitchen drawer, telling myself I'd add them up someday and show Marcus. Not to ask for money back, just so he'd understand how much it all added up to. But I never did show him. It felt too much like keeping score of love. The drop-offs got later. What used to be Saturday morning became Friday after work, then Friday evening with tired, cranky kids who'd already eaten dinner somewhere else. I'd stand at my door in my robe at 9 p.m., watching Marcus carry sleeping children to my guest room, and tell myself this was just a season. Last summer, they went to Hawaii for their anniversary, 5 days that turned into 7 when their flight got delayed. I found out later from Jessica's Instagram posts that they'd extended their stay voluntarily. While I was Googling how to bring down a fever in toddlers, at 2 a.m., she was posting sunset pics with Mai Tais. That's when something started to crack inside me. The breaking point came during spring break this year. Jessica called on a Sunday night, her voice bright with excitement. "Dorothy. Perfect timing. We just booked a last-minute cruise. Caribbean, can you believe it? We leave tomorrow morning, back Thursday. The kids are already packed." Packed. Past tense. Decision made. Arrangements assumed. "I can't this time," I said, surprising myself with how easily the words came out. "Can't?" Jessica's voice went sharp. "What do you mean, can't?" "I have other commitments this week." "Like what?" "Dorothy, we've already paid. Non-refundable." And there it was, the assumption that my life was so empty, so available, that nothing I might have planned could possibly be as important as their cruise. Marcus got on the phone. "Mom, come on. Don't be difficult. It's just 4 days." Difficult. Like setting boundaries made me the problem. That night, I lay awake staring at my ceiling fan, my mind racing. I thought about all the times I'd said yes when I meant maybe. All the times I'd absorbed the inconvenience so they didn't have to feel it. All the miles on my car, all the money from my fixed income, all the sleep I'd lost. I thought about the difference between being helpful and being used. And I realized something that should have been obvious years ago: they didn't want a relationship with me. They wanted a service I provided. The next morning, I didn't drive over to pack the kids up and bring them to my house. Instead, I drove to a travel agent's office and booked myself a week in Sedona. A little casita with a view of the red rocks, hiking trails, art galleries, and blessed, beautiful quiet. When Marcus called later that day, his voice tight with frustration, I was already packing my own suitcase. "Mom, what's gotten into you? This isn't like you." He was right. It wasn't like me. The old me would have caved. The old me would have rushed over to fix their problem, to smooth things over, to make sure everyone else's needs were met before considering my own. But sitting there in my bedroom, folding clothes for a trip that was just for me, I realized something profound: I didn't want to be the old me anymore. The woman who always said yes was tired. She was invisible. She was taken for granted. It was time for the new me to show up, the one who understood that love doesn't mean erasing yourself for other people's convenience. As I zipped my suitcase closed, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: anticipation. Not for what I could give someone else, but for what I was about to give myself. Freedom. Welcome back to Golden Stories. If you missed part 1 of Dorothy's incredible journey, go watch it now, because what you're about to see will blow your mind. This is where our 67-year-old Phoenix grandmother goes from doormat to warrior, and trust me, her family had no idea what was coming. When we left Dorothy, she'd just booked herself a week in Sedona while her son Marcus and daughter-in-law Jessica expected her to watch their 3 kids during their spontaneous Caribbean cruise. Today, we're following Dorothy as she discovers what happens when you finally choose yourself over everyone else's expectations. If you believe grandmothers deserve respect, not just responsibility, smash that like button right now. And if you think Dorothy was wrong to finally put herself first, I'll be reading your comments later, and I've got some questions for you. The drive from Phoenix to Sedona should have taken 2 hours. I stretched it to 3, stopping at every scenic overlook, taking pictures of mountains I'd never bothered to notice during all those rushed trips to grocery stores and soccer practices. My phone buzzed constantly for the first hour. Marcus. Jessica. Marcus again. I let every call go to voicemail. At a gas station in Carefree, I finally listened to the messages. Mom, this is ridiculous. Call me back. Marcus's voice was tight with frustration. Dorothy, we're boarding our flight. Figure this out. Jessica, sounding like she was giving orders to a subordinate who'd missed an important deadline. Grandma Dorothy, where are you? Sophia's little voice in the background of another call. Daddy's mad and Mommy's crying. That last one hit different. But instead of the familiar guilt that would normally send me racing home, I felt something else, clarity. Sophia wasn't my responsibility to fix this situation. Neither were the boys. Marcus and Jessica created this mess by assuming I'd always be available. Now they got to figure it out like the grown adults they were. I deleted the messages and kept driving north. The casita I'd rented sat nestled between red rocks that glowed like fire in the afternoon sun. It had a small kitchen, a living room with floor-to-ceiling windows, and a bedroom that faced east toward Thunder Mountain. For the first time in years, I unpacked clothes for a trip that was entirely mine. No extra suitcases filled with kids' clothes. No coolers packed with juice boxes and string cheese. No car seats to install or diaper bags to organize. Just me, my books, and a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. As it turned out, choosing myself was special enough. That first evening, I sat on the small patio with a glass of red wine and watched the sunset paint the rocks in shades of orange and pink I'd forgotten existed. My phone remained face down on the table inside. Whatever chaos was unfolding back in Phoenix could unfold without me for once. I'd brought 3 books, mysteries I'd bought months ago but never had time to read between helping with homework, driving to activities, and managing other people's emergencies. I opened the first one and read until the stars came out. No one needed me to make dinner. No one needed help with a bath. No one needed me to referee sibling fights or find lost toys or remember which child needed which medication. For the first time in 7 years, I went to bed when I was tired, not when the last child finally settled down. My neighbor in Phoenix, Mrs. Chen, called Tuesday morning. She's the type who knows everything happening on our street before it happens. Dorothy, honey, you should have seen the show at your house yesterday, she said, her voice carrying that mix of concern and barely contained amusement that makes her the best neighborhood gossip. I was sitting on my patio with coffee and a croissant I'd bought from a little cafe in town, so I had time to listen. Marcus showed up Monday evening with all 3 kids, suitcases, and what looked like enough groceries for a week. They stood at your front door for 15 minutes, knocking and ringing the bell. Sophia kept pointing to your car, which obviously wasn't there. I could picture it perfectly. Marcus probably checking his phone, calling my number, getting increasingly frustrated as my voicemail picked up over and over. Jessica was pacing your driveway, talking fast on her phone. I heard her say something about, "This is unacceptable," and, "We'll miss our flight." Mrs. Chen paused for dramatic effect. She's been perfecting this technique for the 30 years we've been neighbors. Finally, they loaded everything back in the car. But Dorothy, and this is the good part, I heard Jessica on the phone with her mother. Something about emergency babysitting and I can't believe Dorothy would do this to us. I almost choked on my coffee. Jessica's mother lived in a 1-bedroom apartment and had made it crystal clear years ago that overnight grandchildren visits were not her thing. They drove away around 7 p.m., looking like they'd been through a tornado. This morning I saw Marcus back at your house, just sitting in his car in your driveway for about 20 minutes. Just sitting there, staring at your front door. The image made me sad for exactly 30 seconds. Then I remembered all the times I'd sat in my car outside their house, waiting for them to bring the kids out an hour later than they'd promised, while my dinner got cold at home. Wednesday brought a guided hike through Devil's Bridge. I joined a group of mostly women my age, all of us with sensible shoes and water bottles, chatting about grandchildren and retirement plans and books we'd read recently. "How many grandkids do you have?" asked Linda, a retired teacher from Flagstaff. "3, I said. 7, 4, and 2. "Oh, you must stay busy helping out," she said with the knowing smile of someone who understood the grandmother hustle. For years, I would have launched into stories about soccer practices and dance recitals, about the joys and exhaustion of frequent babysitting. But standing there on a red rock trail with the Arizona desert spreading out before me, I realized something. "Actually, I'm learning to be busy with my own life," I said instead. Linda raised her eyebrows, interested. "I spent the last few years being so available for everyone else that I forgot I had my own interests," I continued. "This week is about remembering who Dorothy is when she's not on call 24/7. The conversation that followed was unlike any I'd had in years. We talked about books, about travel dreams, about the art classes Linda was taking and the garden Margaret was planning. No one asked me to solve a problem or handle a crisis or put my own needs aside for someone else's emergency. I felt like a person again instead of just a resource. Thursday brought the heavy artillery. My phone rang at 7 a.m. with Marcus's number. "Mom." His voice was tired, defeated. "Can we talk?" I was already up, watching the sunrise from my bedroom window, coffee in hand. The morning light on the red rocks never got old. "I'm listening," I said. Jessica's mom's place was a disaster. The boys couldn't sleep on that pull-out couch. Sophia cried for 2 straight nights asking for you. Jaden had an asthma episode and we didn't even know where his backup inhaler was. I waited. In the old days, this is where I would have started apologizing, where I would have offered to come get them, where I would have absorbed his frustration and made it my problem to solve. "We missed our cruise," he said finally. "Lost the whole deposit." "I'm sorry that happened," I said. And I was sorry they'd learned to count on me to always bail them out instead of building their own support systems. "Are you though?" His voice had an edge now. "Because it feels like you planned this. Like you wanted us to fail." "I planned to take care of myself for once. Your family situation is not my emergency to solve." Long silence. "Then, this isn't like you, Mom. Everyone's worried. Maybe you should see someone, talk to a counselor or something. This whole independence thing is what? Selfish." There was that word again. The word they used when I finally stopped making their problems my problems. "Marcus," I said, my voice steady, "for 7 years I've been available whenever you needed me. I've bought groceries, paid for school activities, stayed up with sick kids, driven hundreds of miles to activities. I've put my own needs last every single time. 1 week of me being unavailable and I'm selfish? That's different. You're their grandmother. That's what grandmothers do. Some grandmothers. But this grandmother is learning to do things differently." I hung up feeling lighter than I had in years. That afternoon, I drove to Tlaquepaque Arts Village and spent hours wandering through galleries, admiring paintings and sculptures and jewelry made by artists who'd followed their own visions. I bought myself a small turquoise bracelet, not because it was practical or necessary, but simply because it was beautiful and I wanted it. At a cafe overlooking Oak Creek, I struck up a conversation with Maria, a woman about my age who'd moved to Sedona after her divorce. "Best decision I ever made," she said, stirring honey into her tea. "I spent 30 years taking care of everyone else's happiness. My husband's career, my kids' schedules, my parents' health crises. When my marriage ended, I realized I'd never actually chosen anything just for me. How did your family react when you moved? Oh, they thought I'd lost my mind. Called it a midlife crisis, said I was being impulsive and irresponsible. But you know what? I've been here 3 years now, and I've never been happier. They've learned to solve their own problems, and our relationships are actually better because I'm not resentful all the time. She leaned back in her chair, the late afternoon sun catching the silver in her hair. The funny thing about being indispensable is that it doesn't actually help anyone. It just teaches them they don't have to be responsible because someone else will always step in. Walking back to my casita as the sun set behind the mountains, I thought about Maria's words. I'd been so proud of being the grandmother who was always available, always ready to help, always willing to sacrifice. But what had my constant availability actually taught my family? That my time had no value. That my needs didn't matter. That love meant erasing myself for their convenience. Tomorrow I'd drive back to Phoenix, but I wouldn't be returning as the same woman who'd left. I'd be returning as someone who'd remembered she was worth more than being taken for granted. Welcome back to Golden Stories. If you've been following Dorothy's journey, you know she just spent a life-changing week in Sedona while her family learned what happens when their free childcare suddenly becomes unavailable. Today we're diving into what happened when Dorothy returned home to Phoenix, and trust me, the drama was real. Before we jump in, hit that subscribe button because part 4 is going to show you the ultimate transformation that will leave you cheering. And if you haven't grabbed your free guide, Setting Boundaries After 65, the link is in the description, because after today's story, you're going to want it. Driving back into Phoenix after a week in Sedona felt like returning from another planet. The familiar sight of palm trees and stucco houses, the heat shimmer rising from the asphalt, the endless strip malls, all of it looked the same, but I felt completely different. I'd left as a woman who couldn't imagine saying no to her family. I was returning as someone who'd remembered what putting herself first felt like. My house looked exactly as I'd left it, quiet, peaceful, and blissfully free of scattered toys and juice box remnants. I carried my single suitcase inside, unpacked my things, and made myself a cup of tea. For the first time in years, coming home felt like arriving somewhere that truly belonged to me. The sense of peace lasted exactly 47 minutes. That's when Marcus's Honda Pilot pulled into my driveway. I watched from my kitchen window as Marcus got out of the car, followed by Jessica and all 3 kids. They marched to my front door like a delegation with a mission. When I opened the door, Sophia launched herself at my legs. Grandma Dorothy. Where did you go? We needed you. Diego hung back, 4 years old and confused by the adult tension crackling in the air. Little Jaden hid behind Jessica's legs, sucking his thumb, something he hadn't done in months. We need to talk, Marcus said without preamble. His jaw was set in that stubborn way that reminded me of his father. Come in, I said, stepping aside. But I didn't rush to offer drinks or snacks or to make everyone comfortable. I just waited. They arranged themselves in my living room like they were staging an intervention. Marcus and Jessica on the couch, kids scattered around the floor with the few toys I hadn't donated to charity yet. Mom, Marcus began, we're worried about you. Are you? I settled into my recliner, the same spot where I'd read countless bedtime stories and helped with homework and listened to little voices tell me about their days. This behavior isn't like you, Jessica jumped in. Taking off without warning, ignoring our calls, leaving us stranded. It's concerning. I looked at her carefully. Jessica was 34, a marketing manager for a successful firm, perfectly capable of managing million-dollar campaigns. But somehow, arranging childcare for her own children for 1 week had been beyond her capabilities. What exactly concerns you? I asked. You put us in an impossible position, Marcus said. We'd already paid for the cruise. Non-refundable. I understand that was frustrating, I said calmly. But I didn't put you in that position. You put yourselves there by booking a trip before securing childcare. You've always been available before, Jessica said, her voice rising slightly. We depend on you. That's exactly the problem. The room went quiet except for Diego making car noises as he rolled a toy truck across my coffee table. What's that supposed to mean? Marcus asked. I took a deep breath. For 7 years, I've been available whenever you needed me. School pickups, overnight babysitting, sick days, last-minute trips. I've bought groceries, paid for activities, sacrificed my own plans over and over. We appreciate everything you do, Jessica said quickly. Do you? Because from where I sit, it feels like you expect it. Like my time belongs to you and my schedule exists solely to accommodate yours. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Mom, you're being dramatic. Am I? When's the last time either of you asked if I had plans before assuming I was available? Silence. When's the last time you offered to pay for groceries when you dropped the kids off for a week? More silence. When's the last time you said, thank you, instead of just assuming I'd say yes to the next request? Jessica's face flushed. That's not fair. We've said thank you. You have. But thank you doesn't pay for gas to drive across town twice a day. Thank you doesn't replace the sleep I lose when Jaden has nightmares. Thank you doesn't give me back the social activities I've missed because I was babysitting. Sophia had been listening with the intense focus children have for adult conversations they sense are important. Are you mad at us, Grandma Dorothy? She asked in her small voice. I knelt down to her level. I'm not mad at you, sweetheart. I love you and your brothers more than you can imagine. But I'm learning that loving you doesn't mean I have to say yes to everything your parents ask me to do. But who will watch us when Mommy and Daddy go on trips? Your parents will figure that out. They're smart people. Marcus stood up abruptly. So that's it? You're done helping your own family? I'm done being taken for granted by my own family, I corrected. There's a difference between helping and being used. Used? Jessica's voice went sharp. We've never used you. I went to my kitchen drawer and pulled out the envelope of receipts I'd been keeping for months. I set it on the coffee table. Last month alone, I spent $247 on groceries and supplies for the kids. I drove 340 miles for school pickups and activities. I missed my book club 3 times and my water aerobics class twice because of last-minute babysitting requests. I sat back down, looking at both of them directly. I have receipts going back 18 months. Would you like to see the total? They stared at the envelope like it was a venomous snake. I never asked you to keep track, Marcus said defensively. I never asked to be your unpaid childcare service. Jessica's eyes filled with tears, the kind of tears that had always made me cave before. I can't believe you're being so cold about this. These are your grandchildren. Which is exactly why I need to model healthy boundaries for them, I said. What am I teaching Sophia about her own worth if I show her that women should always sacrifice their needs for everyone else? You're being selfish, Marcus said flatly. There it was again. That word they used like a weapon every time I considered my own needs. Marcus, I said slowly, I want you to explain to me how 7 years of free babysitting, groceries, and round-the-clock availability makes me selfish the moment I say no once. He opened his mouth, then closed it. I want you to explain how choosing to take care of my own needs for 1 week is selfish, but expecting me to drop everything for your convenience whenever you ask isn't. Jessica jumped in. We never expected. You booked a cruise without arranging childcare first. You showed up at my door with suitcases and a list of instructions. You didn't ask, you informed me I'd be watching them. How is that not expecting? The conversation went in circles for another 20 minutes. Marcus accused me of changing the rules without warning. Jessica suggested I was going through some kind of crisis. They both made it clear they thought I was being unreasonable, ungrateful, and selfish. Finally, I'd heard enough. I think you both need to leave, I said calmly. Mom, Marcus started. I love you. I love these children. But I will not sit in my own home and be lectured about selfishness by two people who have been taking my generosity for granted for years. Jessica's face went red. Fine. But don't expect us to come running when you change your mind. I won't, I said evenly. They gathered the kids and left in a flurry of hurt feelings and slammed car doors. Sophia waved sadly from her car seat. Diego pressed his face against the window. Jaden was already asleep. I watched them drive away and felt empty. Not sad, exactly. Not guilty. Just hollow. That evening, my sister Carmen called from Tucson. The family gossip network had clearly been activated. Marcus called me, she said without preamble. He's worried about you. Says you're acting strange, being difficult. Difficult, I repeated. Interesting word choice. Dorothy, honey, what's going on? This doesn't sound like you. Maybe that's the problem, I said. Maybe I've been so busy being who everyone else needed me to be that I forgot who I actually am. Carmen was quiet for a moment. Are you okay? Really okay? I think I'm okay for the first time in years. We talked for an hour. I told her about Sedona, about the realization that love doesn't require self-erasure, about how good it had felt to put my own needs first for once. You know what? Carmen said finally. Good for you. I've been watching you run yourself ragged for those kids while Marcus and Jessica live their best lives. It was time someone said something. I didn't realize it was so obvious. Honey, everyone could see it except you. Even Mama used to say she worried you were giving too much of yourself away. That night, I sat in my quiet house and thought about my mother, who died 5 years earlier. She'd been a strong woman who'd raised 6 children and never lost herself in the process. I wondered what she'd think about the woman I'd become, and the woman I was trying to become. I made a decision that night. This wasn't going to be about punishment or anger. It was going to be about teaching my family that love has boundaries, that generosity has limits, and that respecting people includes respecting their time and choices. Whether they were ready to learn or not.